Thank you, guys. If it was anybody but Ilya presenting in front of me, I would be really offended because, you know, I'm clearly smelling. But that's definitely not a competition. But when I was preparing for this, I knew what Ilya would be talking about and some of the innovations and some of the stuff that they're working on. So I'm not going to be reiterating. One thing that I would say is that we are building on NEAR, and we're definitely on the forefront of trying to adopt as much as possible of this stuff hitting the market and pushing it out there. To give you an example, last February during East Denver, we've already done a demo of chain abstraction and showed how we could control using NEAR keys assets on BNB. Things take time. We still haven't rolled it out in production, but we're very, very close. But that's not the topic of conversation. For those that don't know what Sweat and Sweat economy does, we make the world more physically active, we tokenize your physical activity, and we make it as valuable as possible. The more you gain from your physical activity, the more people come in and they monetize their physical activity, and magically, they also become a lot more physically active. So that's our mission, and we've chosen NEAR because of its high throughput sharded architecture and an amazing building team and the founding team. But I'll talk slightly different stuff. We are right now in an infrastructure bubble. And when I first said it about 9 months ago, everyone was just going to go, you know, that's very strange. Right now, there are more and more people nodding. The more I talk to capital allocators, the more I talk to builders, they realize that, you know, kind of we have way too many chains. That's what we've seen. In 2009, we had Bitcoin. Then in 2011, we added Litecoin. And then it just started exploding and exploding and exploding and exploding. And right now, we have more than 1,000 chains. Some people estimate 1,800 chains in existence. And there are several hundred projects in development. There was a party that I attended actually in Portugal probably about now 6 months ago, and there were, out of 20 people, there were 4 building stealth layer 1 and layer 2 chains. It is absolutely incredible how much activity we have in there. And this is not even counting the rest of the infrastructure stuff, such as bridges, dexes, and, you know, kind of, you name it, ZKs, moves, etc., etc. We have so much infrastructure, and we've invested into it so much that you can't shake a stick at it. And this is definitely starting to come to an end because you can clearly see that returns that we used to see from launches of layer 1s and layer 2s are not materializing as much as capital allocators used to see. And we're starting to stutter in terms of our adoption. Now, when this finally, the penny drops and we stop focusing on the infrastructure, what is going to be the next step? The next step is definitely going to be consumer crypto. And the reason why I'm so confident in this being the next step in the narrative, not for NEAR, but for the whole of Web3, is because we've seen it all before. If you look at pretty much any big industry that came into existence over the last few hundred years, it always repeated the same pattern. Let's look at railroads. When railroads appeared, all the money was going into building railroads. United States, I think it's Rockefellers, the original money were made by building railroads. Then they exited that business, invested into oil, and moved on. But the initial money were made on the infrastructure. I lived in the UK, and I know a little bit of history. Before 20th century, in the UK, there were 280 railway companies. By the middle of 20th century, they collapsed to 7, then to 1, and right now, there is not a penny made on the infrastructure. However, railroads have created the modern world as we know it. The city of Atlanta, for example, wouldn't exist if it wasn't for railroads. And right now, the money are made elsewhere. First, we build infrastructure, then we build actually money-making machines. Let's look at radio. Same story. At the beginning, all the money were going to towers, cables, radio receivers. And right now, money are made on consumer advertising, and infrastructure is nowhere to be seen. Television, same story. Infrastructure first. Right now, even TV manufacturers are selling TV sets at cost and making money by pre-installing applications who share with them part of their revenue that they generate from users watching content on those devices. Mobile, same story. I think that pretty much all of us probably remember that all the investment in mobile was going to build out of G1, G2, G3, G4, G5 networks. Right now, who have seen any conversation, especially on the front of FT, talking about mobile operators? In fact, they're called dumb pipes. What is happening right now in the mobile? All the money right now are made by Apples and Googles and in an app economy. Now, that brings me to the most pertinent and probably most relevant industry that we're all familiar with, internet. And the reason why internet is so pertinent is because we even compare ourselves, Web3 adoption, with internet. So these are the years of internet, and these are the years of Web3. And as you can see, adoption of Web3 is tracking perfectly adoption of internet. This data is a little bit old. I'm trying to find later data points. But what's interesting is, anybody remembers what happened in internet in year 2000? Dot-com bubble. So what happened was, after more than 10 years of investing into infrastructure, there was dot-com bubble because we built too much infrastructure. Money were going to data centers, cables, et cetera, and returns were not there. And all the capital allocators realized that they needed a whole new narrative, and the new narrative was consumer products. This gave us Google in 2003. This gave us Facebook in 2007. And pretty much all the money that were made on the internet were made in here, not in there. And big tech was created here, not there. Now, why is this relevant? Well, because we've invested so much in Web3 into infrastructure, but if you start to look around, you realize that for more than 1,000 chains, if you look at DApp Radar, which is probably the best tracker of dApps in the world, and you look at number of dApps that have more than 1,000 users, and 1,000 users is not a lot. I mean, it really is not something to be proud of. The number of dApps with 1,000 users is less than 600. We have 1,000 chains, and we have 600 dApps. That would be using railway analogy, because we do call blockchains rails. Imagine there are 1,000 railway companies, and there are about 600 carriages running on them. That's not really good and viable business if you're a railway company, because there are not enough carriages to even put one carriage on each chain. We know that there will be fallout. We know that a lot of these blockchains will cease to exist. And we are right now on the brink of this fallout. Now, most importantly, what will be the shape of consumer crypto? How will it be different? What are we going to be doing differently from what we were doing before? First and foremost, it's going to be mobile-centric. If we want to drive wide adoption, it is not going to be done on the web. It's not going to be done on desktops or laptops. It is going to have to be on the mobile. And most likely, it's going to have to be mobile native. In my visit to Africa, I climbed Kilimanjaro with my son for Christmas last year, and afterwards we went for safari, and we went into Maasai land. And you see this guy standing everywhere. This is roughly the position that they're in. So there is spear against lions, and in another hand there is a cheap Android device. And they have, per village, they have one solar panel, and they have a queue of Maasais charging their phones. And when I looked at it, they are actually using apps. They are not using mobile web. And I believe that if we want to go as far into every single corner of the world, it's going to have to be mobile-centric. The second is chainless and simple UX. Let's face it, the stuff that we have right now in Web3 is incomprehensible for most people. Let me give you an example. We were integrating DEX into Sweat Wallet. We grappled with slippage. We put slippage this way and that way, and every single time the user would get to the point of slippage, the following thing would happen. They would go, oh, what's slippage? Then they would go and do research, frequently never coming back. And if they came back, then they would be trying to set up that number, and the funnel was really not working. You know what we've done? We just removed slippage completely from the interface and put it to an absolute maximum. The funnel was affected 10x. So sometimes we just need to really remove all this complexity and all the stuff that we, I want to see slippage. But you know what? Next billion people doesn't want to even know what the hell slippage is. And terminology is definitely a massive barrier for them. And the third and very, very important point is active users is the currency of success. When we started looking at Web3, currency of success was TVL. Everything was about TVL. Chains were comparing themselves on TVL. Every single project was talking about TVL. But you know what? You can really see that it is a major, major issue for building products for the next billion people. I had a lot of experience with founders who came to me and discussed their business plans. And they had this brilliant idea that we're going to build this thing and it's going to drive wide adoption. And while they were raising money, VCs told them that the success metric is TVL. Then what happened, as they started building, they realized that they could hit the TVL objective by making 10 phone calls. And they did them. And guess what happened? The people that they convinced to come said, no, this is fucking nonsense. I need interface that is exactly what I'm using right now. Just give me higher APY. And what they ended up building is a replica of existing product, and they just had to give them more money in order to use that product. And of course, next billion people is never going to be able to navigate and understand what the hell that interface was. By choosing wrong success metric, they had to basically abandon their original vision of developing something that would drive wide adoption and ended up building something that already exists. And that is why we have a lot of products that are replica of each other, and whales move around and they move their liquidity and they increase their earnings while we're not necessarily building stuff that brings next billion people. Now, what are going to be the products that's going to drive mass market adoption? I just, I ask our designers to, bastardize a little bit the title of the book that I'm sure you're all familiar with. Read, Write, Own. Web3 is all about ownership. And we know basic, products that already exist. It's of course around money, it's around data, it's around access, real-world assets. But very, very importantly, now, especially with Near spearheading this, all of this can be sped up and improved by using AI. And this is why it's very, very exciting to build on Near, because in addition to being able to do all of these things by focusing on the mobile, really focusing across all chains, and developing really, really good stuff for mass market adoption without worrying about TVL, we now have this additional tooling that we can offer to users and use ourselves to speed up our delivery and testing. Oops. So this is the area that we take care of because, kind of Near is a blockchain. They're not necessarily focusing on mobile. We are definitely focusing on active users. However, we have a massive dependency because all of this stuff is actually largely driven by the Near team because we are building on Near product and Near ecosystem. Now, What will this give us as an industry, and specifically near ecosystem? First is chain abstraction allows us to sidestep this incoming chain bloodbath, because it really sucks when you're just one of the 1,800 blockchains. But I believe that with chain abstraction, we can sidestep it and really become a front end into Web3. Not near, not Bitcoin, not Ethereum. We need to be able to be a front end for any chain that users want to play on. The second is AI, high throughput and low fees allow projects that build for the next billion to exploit any narrative. And here is a very, very interesting point, because you've seen that there are two fundamental phases for any industry development: infrastructure and then consumer. What we call narratives, they actually fall underneath it. In the infrastructure, we had proof of work, proof of stake, delegated proof of stake, ZK, move, God, anything and everything. Those are sub-things, sub-narratives under the infrastructure. And in consumer crypto, we're also going to have a lot of different narratives. I mean, meme coins is one of the narratives for wide adoption, for wide consumer. If you're building on a chain that's got sharded architecture, high throughput, low fees, and all the AI tooling, you can build and really fit into any of those narratives or piggyback off those narratives. But what's the most important is the result that we have an ability to own trusted front-end market. And why does it matter? Is because that's where all the money in Web3 in the future are going to be made. Money in Web3 in the future are going to be made on front ends, not on the levels of protocol. And if you would like to go through this logic, find me, I'll draw you a diagram and I'll explain to you in detail. This is way too long of a conversation, but whoever is going to win the battle for the trusted front end on the mobile that users will trust with their private key is going to be commanding a control over revenue streams for all the rest of the infrastructure providers that exist in this industry. What do we do to get into this space and be that player? Sweat Wallet across all chains. So we're building on chain signatures and chain abstraction so that our users, and we have millions of them, don't have to go to Phantom if they want to engage with Solana. They don't have to go to MetaMask if they want to engage with Ethereum and EVM. We want to make sure that users don't think about chains. They think about assets, and they can play on any chain using one single simple interface. We go so far, and this is a glimpse of the interface that you can find in our wallet right now. You will not even find information what chain your asset is on until you go into fees, because it's relevant. If I have USDT on 3 different chains, I need to know what is the total amount. The only time when it matters what chain it is on is if I want to send it, because on Ethereum it's going to cost one amount, on Polygon it's going to cost another, on Near it's going to cost third amount. That's the only relevant time when users need to know what chain that asset is on, when we're calculating and presenting them with fees that they're going to have to pay. The second one is one key for any action. Chain abstraction allows you to have near key that controls any account on any chain. And we already have MPC, and people are telling me, yeah, but this already exists. It is not upgradable. What happens right now, once you create your seed phrase in a wallet, then that seed phrase is used to create your accounts on other chains. You cannot upgrade it. You cannot move it, for example, to Ledger, right? In the world of near chain abstraction, I can simply start with social login. I can have a key that is tied to my Google account. If I want to increase my security, I can put a seed phrase in there. And all the rest of the accounts that are controlled through Near are not going to be affected. it's going to function really well. And if you're paranoid like me, then you will be able to upgrade it to Ledger so that you basically have cold storage on your wallet and nothing can happen without you confirming that transaction. And very importantly, you're going to have to worry about one key instead of my situation where I have dozens of different accounts on different chains. And I'm sure that you've encountered this situation where you're going like, shit, where was that thing? What account? And then you realize that you have multiple accounts on that chain, and then you're looking for that seed phrase. You know what? If it's all controlled with one key and it's all in one interface, you just remove probabilities of losing things, forgetting things, and you just have a lot easier life. And everyone wants to have an easier life, right? And last but not least, at least our users, they really can't comprehend why, if they want to send something on Polygon, they need to have Pol. If they want to send something on BNB, they need to have BNB. They just want to pay with whatever asset they have in their wallet. And in our case, 100% of our users, 18 million token holders, got Sweat. So what we're doing right now is we're making sure that they can pay with their Sweat fees on any chain, not just on Near, but on BNB, on Base, on Ethereum, on Bitcoin, anything and everything. Now, what does it mean? This is wide adoption. If you're creating a product that is really simplifying people's lives and removes complexity, over time, you're definitely going to acquire a lot of users, and most importantly, you're going to retain them. Here, it is about progressive security. Some, as I said, wallets have single key, but there is no progressive security with a single key that allows you to control all different chains. And last but not least is we allow you to pay your fees with your feet. And that is a very, very exciting narrative, because I don't know about you, but last thing I like doing is paying out of my pocket those fees. And if you can subsidize fee on any chain by moving your feet, that is a very, very exciting proposition. And that's what our users are extremely excited about. And I can't wait for Near to roll out all of those exciting near intents, chain abstraction, and one technology that I believe Ilya wasn't talking about, but is worth mentioning, is one-click connect. I don't know about you guys, but one of the worst user experience pieces that I frequently go through, you open the front end and it says connect wallet. And then on average, you have to go through 7 clicks. You need to recover your seed phrase, or you need to pull your ledger. That is a pain in a freaking neck. And in our experience, 90% of users, even crypto natives, don't complete that journey, because you really have to be determined to go through all of that pain. Now, what does one-click connect do? One-click connect allows you to open the front end, and the interface and the smart contract of that dApp knows your address and knows where to send your transaction. So you open the front end, you're already logged in, you do whatever the hell you want, you confirm transaction, and it pops up in your Sweat wallet, you confirm it there, and that means that there is only one place that knows your private key, that has access to this information. So rather than spreading it all over and potentially falling foul from, scammers and, impersonators and man in the middle, you are reducing probability of somebody getting a hold of something that gives them control over your asset. So one-click connect right now has been scoped to work across all different chains, and that is something that is going to add the layer of magic for the user, because they can click on any dApp on any chain, and when it opens, they can use it without even knowing what chain they're on. And if they perform an action, they just have to confirm it in one place, Sweat wallet. Thank you.